All right, hello. Welcome to another yesterlore. We are back with yesterlore, and today we are going to be reading a poem from the Exeter book. The Exeter book is a codex that we actually have read before in yesterlore. It's actually the first one we've read from, I think. If I'm not mistaken, it's one of the first things we looked at, if not the first. Dates to the late 900s, sort of 980-ish, in that realm, in terms of the manuscript recording. The poems within are a little bit harder to date and seem to vary to an extent as to when they were composed. What we are going to look at today is a poem called, by scholars now, Wulf and eadwacer. Eadwacer. So these are names that appear in the poem. We'll talk about some different theories that exist about the identity of these names, like who they belong to. But what I find interesting about this poem, among many other things, is a very mysterious poem. But one of the things that's interesting about it is it's one of the few that is clearly, based on the grammar, written from a female perspective. Very few of our poems are clearly written from a female perspective. Many of them could have been, but it's just not clear necessarily grammatically whether or not it's feminine, but this one should be given some grammatical features that we'll come across in the poem. That's interesting in and of itself, just because that's cool to see in medieval literature, because it's not super common in Old English literature to see a female voice speaking in the poem. We don't know if it was composed by a woman. Perhaps it was. But in either case, a woman is the speaker in the poem. Another thing that's interesting about this is that this poem, it is in alliterative verse. It's kind of atypical in some ways, the alliterative verse. It kind of stretches the typical conventions. And it also has something of a refrain that is returned to, which is not super common in Old English poetry. There aren't very many poems that have a refrain. But this one does seem to have something of a refrain. And then the other mysterious thing about it is just the content. There's several different ways to possibly interpret the poem. So there's a lot of debate about it, therefore. But I think it is interesting to look at. And we are looking at the Exeter book directly, well, as directly as I can from a computer that is not in England right now. This is Exeter book it is called, where is it? Sorry, I'm trying to get the name of the URL. It will be linked. It's the exeterbook.exeter.ac.uk. We've used this before to look at the Exeter book. It's a cool digitization of the Exeter book. So we are just going to read straight from it. I am going to read what would equate to some poetic lines at a time, like a few, maybe two, or just a sentence that's coherent, if I can pick that out. And then we will talk about what it means. And yeah. So it begins with this capital L here. If I zoom out a bit, you can see like the context of the whole page. There's another poem before it. I do not remember off the top of my head what comes immediately before. Looking at it off the top of my head, I'm just trying to see if I can even identify it just by looking at it. Probably not. Oh, this is Deor. Yeah, this is Deor. I can recognize it because this is one of the other few poems that has a refrain. Thas over eode, thysis swa mai. And it ends that way too. We can talk about Deod another day. It is a beautiful poem, and I've written some stuff about it before. If you're curious, you can find that on my website. But it, at least, I've written about the first stanza. At least I think it's the first and second stanza. So that's what comes right before it, and after, I don't remember what's immediately after. We'll see. So we are going to begin here with this capital L. And the first word is laudum. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Laudum is minum swilche him mon lak yiva willeth hine athejan yif he on thrat kumeth un yelich is us. Now, one thing we see here before I start translating is you see a couple examples of accent marks over what are long vowels. Now, they're not marking every long vowel, so it seems like maybe they're marking long vowels that seem to be important just as like potentially a help with where to put stress. They're not super common, but they do show up from time to time. You see a couple up here with nu. Other times, though, it looks like it might just be like a flourish of the pen. Like this isn't an accent. This is just the pen being lifted, I think. But here we have lock with that mark. We have, yeah, and then we have us are the only two that we just saw. So I'll stop zooming around. So we begin laudum is minum. So that's the first half line, even though it's not a full thought. Laude is like people, as in one's people, one's tribe, one's group. And it has a um here, and then we also have minum with a um. Now is just is, but minum is the word mean, which is my, and it's matching the ending of laudum, so it's my people, but it's in the dative case because the is in the dative here. So laudum is minum, so it is minum laudum would probably be the more like modern English adjacent syntax. Now we'd probably need a dummy pronoun it. We would say something like it is to my people, or it is for my people. For my people. So we're actually just going ahead and starting with for my people. For people is my, but the my refers back to people, so it's clear grammatically what matches. This is one of the things about a language that has case marking, as your word order is more flexible. At least in Old English, it's more flexible in poetry. In prose, they probably wouldn't order it like this, although it would still make sense. It just would be unlikely to order it this way, but it is needed for the poem here. You need laudum, the loud, or the lao would be the stress syllable here, and me would be the stress syllable here. Laudum is minum. So those two need to be stressed, so they need to be separated out here in that order. At least it makes it flow better. And we also have L alliteration, because in the second half we have swilche him mon lak yiva. So swilch here it's where the word such comes from, and here it's sort of more like such that, or maybe like as if. It is for my people such that, and then what we have here, or as if, rest of the clause. So what is the rest of the clause? Him mon lak yeva. So yeva here, this is like a dialectal variation where it's just yiva. but it's yiva here is the verb, and it's in the subjunctive. So it's like as if, hypothetical, yiva here. And the subject here looks like it would be mon here, mon or man more standardly. Man means person, but it also can act as a pronoun like one or someone, and it still has that sense in German, man, M-A-N, with one N, with two N's, which is what you find in Old English for the word man. It means person in Old English, M-A-N-N. But often when it's a pronoun, you see one N, and sometimes you see one N with the word for person as well. But the pronoun use tends to just have one N. So someone, as if someone give, would be how we translate that. Someone might give or would give. Him. Now, him is technically ambiguous. It can mean him, it can mean it, or it can mean them, all in the dative case. So it's technically ambiguous. It's probably him for reasons we will see in later lines. Now, the key word here that gets this accent mark is lak. So lak is a very multivalent word. It can mean gift, it can mean offering, it can mean like worship in some contexts. It can also mean just a situation that you render unto someone, and it can mean it could even mean battle in some contexts. I've seen it mean battle, or just kind of be conveying the idea of some kind of interplay. It's some sort of thing given in exchange is usually the that's maybe like the vaguest translation that covers all of its possible meaning or most of its possible meanings. Here it's probably gift, but maybe in a more ironic way, and that's kind of the beauty of this word lak here. So it seems as if, so for my people, it's as if someone would give him something, like a lak, a gift. But that gift, what will it be? Willath, he, ne, sorry, it gets put onto the next line, but that's hine, which is him as a direct object, hine. So this first one, he, which is a sort of late West Saxon variant of hie, which is they. So willeth hie, hine, a thejan, yif he on thrat kumeth. All right, so willath there is maybe understandable as willeth or will, they will, willath hie, so they will, him, athejan. Now athejan has a lot of different meanings. Here it's sort of like, it's probably the meaning of like pounce upon, use up, or consume, or something like that. Athejan. They're going to get him, basically, is what this is meaning. Yif he on thrat cometh. And here you see there's no space between on and thrat, but it is on, and then the word thrat, because I don't think there is a word on thrat. Here, thrat is their military force, their troop, their squad, her people. So, because we have a female speaker, so her people, their troop. If he comes in, yif again is if if he comes into their group, onthrat kumith, if he does that, they will pounce on him. And then this section ends, and we say a section here ends is because this is the actual first example of the refrain that we'll get a few times. Unyalich is us. Here we have another use of is interjecting between two things that we'd probably reorder in modern English. So unyalich is us. And this is this is like a half line because we have un and us, and it alliterates within itself, but it does not have a match. We don't have a matching second half line here. So it's another way to tell that the stanza ends because we don't have another sort of vowel alliteration. We start a new alliteration. Well, the next alliteration is actually a vowel alliteration, but we have two half lines that do it, so they have to be together because we start another sort of pattern of two half lines at a time. So this is sort of standing on its own as the refrain. Unyalich is us. Now, unyalich is unlike. The ya there is a prefix. Un is a prefix on that. The key part is lich here, which is like. It also means body, but here it's probably like because it's describing us, or it's not actually describing us. It's describing the situation. We would probably again have an it here in English. It would be something like it is unlike, and then us is in the dative here. It could be accusative, but there's no verb for it to be the object of, so it's probably dative here. It's more like it is unlike with us. So like for us, it's different. How is it different? Well, maybe to her people, they would give him a gift, that gift being pouncing on him if he showed up. So maybe there's some kind of feud, like he's on the other side of some kind of battle or feud between clans or something. But with the two of them, it's different. So it's often thought that this is some sort of love poem, or love poem is maybe not the best word. There is love as a thing in the poem, although I wouldn't call it a love poem just because it's not all about the love. It's about the difficulty of the situation, it seems like. And here we have the first name that's in the title that modern scholars have given it, wulf here. Wulf, now we have to go to the next line, is on ie, ich on overe. So our alliteration is with ie and overe. So it's vowel alliteration. So we have wolf, which is wolf, but probably, well, actually, we're not sure. It means wolf, but it's also a name. So wolf is on, that's the same as modern English. And then ie is an island. It's actually the I in island. The S that we have in the word island is sort of an inkhorn insertion of an S based on the false assumption that it's related to the word isle, I-S-L-E, which comes from French. But the I in island is from Ieland, which is a compound of ie and land, like an island land, which is kind of redundant, but so is werman and weefman, and those were common enough to become, at least the latter became woman. So we can have redundant compounds, and Ieland is one of them, and that's where we get the word island. So the I in island should not have an S. It used to have a G here, I-E-G-E, yeah. So wolf is on an island, or a wolf is on an island if we don't want to assume it's a person. And then ich on overe, and that might be understandable if you know that ich is I, so I on other. So, and it's in the dative. So wolf is on an island, I on another, or the other. Probably another, because we don't have any kind of definiteness here. Although other can also mean second. So it could mean the second, and therefore the other. So it is a little, You can translate it both ways, but another is probably more likely. He's on an island, I'm on another. Fast is that eiland. There's that compound there, eiland. The vowel's a little different here, but this is the same word, eiland. Fast is that eiland. Fenne beworpen. Fenne beworpen. That B is a prefix, but it's getting cut off at the end of the line, at the end of the page, so we are going to the next one. So fast is that eiland. Fenne beworpen. So F alliteration there. So fast here is fast in an older sense. It's fast as in secure, held fast, fastened. Fast is that island. So that island is secure. It's safe, held safe. And then fen here is the modern word fen, so like a marshy area, although marsh fans will probably comment that there's difference between marshes, fens, swamps. There are many differences between these different things, but a fen is some kind of wetland. It's a little bit more vague in Old English sometimes than it would be in modern English, but it's beworpen fen. Fen is in the dative again. Probably instrumental use of the dative because beworpen means surrounded. It's warping around by a fen. So surrounded by a fen. So that might be why it's secure. It's secure because it's surrounded by wetlands that make it hard to get to. Another reason why is because Sindon wal rewe weras thar on ie. So on the island, this is another another spelling of ie. Here it's ie. We had a and then we had ie. Lots of different spellings of this word. Sindon wal rewe weras. So wal rewe is like blood, ravenous, bloodthirsty, and then wer is man. So this is weras men. So they're thad on ie, Sindon. There on the island are bloodthirsty men. That might also be why it's secure, fast, because you can't get on there because they'll kill you. And then we again have wulf. Hina a thejan yif he on thrat kumeth unjeliche is us. Now, that is almost identical to what we had before. They want to, or they will, consume him, pounce on him if he comes into their throng. And then it's unlike with us, it's different with us, although this time it's unjeliche here, which can be interpreted in a couple of ways. So like formally, it is ambiguous whether this could be a dative singular, unjeliche. It could also be a masculine plural nominative. That's unlikely, I think. Or it could be an adverb. So you can express the same idea. I think saying unjelich here, it is different, and then unjelich here isn't really agreeing with anything. It's just it, perhaps, is what it's agreeing to, like an unspoken it. Here, instead of agreeing with anything, it's just acting as an adverb on is. I don't think there's a sense difference here. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone argue. Perhaps someone has, but I've never seen anyone argue that there's some kind of major difference here with unjeliche is us versus unjelich is us. There's like technically a grammatical one, but in this context, it doesn't really make a difference. It's different with us. So Wolf is on an island. I'm on a different one. That island is secure, surrounded by fen with bloodthirsty men. So I think when we're talking about that island, I think it's the other one, the second one, because that's the one where the bloodthirsty men are, and they will consume him, just like she said, my people will consume him. So I think she is on the island with bloodthirsty men who would kill him if he showed up. He's on another island. All right, whoa, I did not mean to zoom out like that. All right, let's go over here now. Let's read the next part. All right. Wulves ich minus vidlastum venum dorode. Okay, we can maybe pause there because this starts like a new clause. So wulves, we see wolf again, but wulves is the genitive singular, so it's of wolf. So of wolf, I, each, minus vidlastum. So we have minus, which is also in the genitive singular, and then we have vidlastum. A last is a track or a trail, or more metaphorically like trek, journey. And weed makes that later sense, probably the one that's meant. Weed and wide journey, far journey. And then we have and this is dative, plural, so it's like far journeys, far trails. And then venum. So ven here is like expectation or hope. And then we have dorode, which is doyan, which means to follow. To follow after or go after someone. So, and then dorode here is going with each I. So this I, looked at the wrong line. So I went after, and what did I go after? I think mines here, this is the beauty of poetry. It's ambiguous. It could be my wolf's far travels. And then here I think the dative of expectation or hope is like in them. It's plural here, so it's like expectations or hopes. So like in hopes. So in expectations or in hopes, I went after my wolf's wide journeys. Or it's my hopes. So in I went after the far trails of wolf in my hopes. So the my and the wolf are referring to different things. Because this would be my wolf's journeys. Actually, wait. No, I don't think it can be ambiguous. I'm looking at the ending here. Minus is genitive. So it has to agree with the genitive. It has to be my wolf. Yeah, it has to be my wolf. Because there's nothing else here that's in the genitive. There's no reason for mine to be in the genitive. So mean is a like a possessive pronoun. It gets a possessive across. You put it in the genitive to agree with the noun that it describes. And here it has to be a genitive singular. So it has to be my. Yeah. So I guess it is ambiguous what they describe. Is it my wolf's wide journeys or my wolf's hopes? But I think the hopes are the speakers, at least, in hope, because something has to be describing pursued here. I followed in hopes. I followed my wolf's far travels. Far trail. And then we have thonne here. And you don't see an E here, but this line over the O indicates there's a second N. And there is no word thun. Well, there is a word thun with one N. There isn't really a word thun with two N's exactly. But this is often used to abbreviate the word thunne without having to add the E, because it shows that there's a double N and then an E after it is just kind of implied there. But it's thunne hit was I'll zoom out a little bit because you're probably getting dizzy from me going back and forth so much. Hit was rainy. Oh, that's too small though for you guys, huh? Rainy weather. Each reutu sat. So this is the part that makes it unambiguous that the speaker is feminine, because we have an adjective describing the speaker. So, thonne hit was rainy weather. That is almost modern English. Thonne is when. That part's a little bit different. That's related to the word then in modern English, but it's when. When hit, which is it, was rainy, which is rainy, weather, which is weather. So when it was rainy weather, and each reutu sat. So reutu is the feminine nominative singular of a word that means like sad. So I sat sad, sadly, sorrowfully. Oh, it's not really sorrowfully. It's an adjective, but it kind of is going with the. We're kind of treating sit like a copular verb here, like linking verb. When I sat sad, and it was rainy weather. So this is kind of adding on to that last sentence. So in my hopes, I followed after my wolf's far travels when it was rainy weather and I sat sad. So she's on this island surrounded by bloodthirsty men who would kill Wolf if he showed up. And she's sitting alone in the rainy weather, imagining following after him. Very beautiful poem, in my opinion. Thonne mech se badukava boum bileida. So we have B alliteration, which is fun. So thonne again. Here it's actually then because we're starting a new sentence, because thonne means then and when. Depends on if it's acting as a well, in either case it's kind of a relative pronoun, but we are using this as an introductory sort of transition pronoun here. Thonne mech se badukava boum bileida. So se badukava is the subject, because we're using se here, which is only used for subjects, masculine singular subjects. A badukava is, so badu is battle, and then kava is like someone who's brave. Battle brave one. The battle brave dude. And then we have me, and then we have this word boum. So a bow here is it's like a branch, really. It's a bough, but we can use branches poetically to mean limbs. So it's limbs, and it's dative here because he belayed, he laid upon someone, and that someone is me, mech, in his limbs, basically. Like here we're using the dative for the sort of like location, or potentially like the how. How did he lay his arms, or lay his me in him? I guess like in his arms. So, so then the battle brave guy, that's kind of implied, laid his limbs upon me, around me. So I guess that's a very poetic way of saying he hugged her, embraced her. Then we have was me win tothon. Was me huadra ak lav. Okay. So was me win. This is like an impersonal, like was to me win. So win was to me tothon. So like in thon, which is here, it's like that. To that, or for in that, win, which is joy, was to me. So that was happy to me. That was joy for me. That was a joy for me. But we also have was me huadra ac lath. So ac is also, and then huadra is sort of like however or but. So but also it was to me loth, and loth is where we get the word loathe. So it was also loath to me. It was also sort of like awful. So it was joyful for me, but it was awful for me as well. Probably because of this whole, what seems like a kind of Romeo and Juliet situation of they are a bit star-crossed because her people would pounce on him if he showed up. So wulf mean wolf. Wena methina. So wolf, my wolf. This is the second time we've had my wolf. Wolf, my wolf. Wena methina. Seuka yedidon. Thina. And then this is where we need to go on to the next line. If I remember correctly, since we have S, it's Thina seldkamas, I think is what it is. It's been a while since I've read this poem, but I think we're going to go to 101 recto now. Thina seldkamas. Yeah, seldkamas. So what we said, it was wolf mean wolf. Wena methina. Seuke yedidon. Thina seldkamas. That alliteration really does help you memorize these a little bit. So wolf, my wolf. And then we had wen again, but it's wena me thine. So it's wena of hopes, or no, wen is feminine. So I think it's feminine. So it's hopes, for me, thina of you, seuke yedidon. So they did me sick. Seuke is sick. So they did me sick. My hopes of you made me sick. And then thina seldkamas. So you might be able to guess this one. Kumas are comings, arrivals, showing up is kume. And then seld is like seldom. Your seld comings, your rare coming over. You not coming over very often. And then we have mornende mode. We have another accent O here. Mornende mode nales metallista. All right. And so mornende mode just is describing mode. Mode is like your heart or your mind or the part of you that thinks and feels, basically, is your mode. And mornenda, that's like mourning, as in being sad. So sad heart. Nales metallista. So list here is like want or lack or desire for something. And meta is food. It's where the word meat comes from, but it's more generally like edible things, food, meal. And then nales is here, it's like not at all. And lista here is in the dative, I believe. This would be dative. I think list is, if list is feminine, it could also be genitive, but I think in either case it's telling you the cause, which is not at all. So my hopes of you, my wolf, have made me sick. They did me sick. You're coming not very often. A sorrowful heart, sorrowful mind, not at all from a lack of food. So I'm not sad because I'm hungry or like I'm starving. And that seems like it's a little silly to bring up, but when we're talking about like a medieval context where getting a meal is really a life or death situation. I mean, it still can be, but like it's a much more salient thing of like, if you're going hungry, that would make you sad. And she's saying, no, I'm not just in a state where I'm not able to get food and therefore upset. It's because of you. Now here is where we get the second named entity in the poem. It says, "Ye hyrest thu eadwacer uncerna arna whelp bireth wulf to wuda." Now, this is the only part so far, other than the wulf to wuda, bireth wulf to wuda. Actually, I'll start translating before we get there. I'm getting ahead of myself. Yehirist thu. That might be guessable, or understandable. Yehirist thu. Do you hear? Hearst thou? And then we have eadwacer. So we had wolf. Now we have this name eadwacer. Ad is like fortunate. And then wacer is watcher. It sounds like watcher, and it means watcher. But this is an attested name as well as like wolf is. So like there's again, like there are records of this name elsewhere, and cognates like eadwacer, from like I think the 300s. In continental Europe, there's an eadwacer, and that's cognate with this name eadwacer. It's like blessed or fortunate guard or watcher. So do you hear me? Eadwacer. Uncerna whelp erna whelp. Bireth wulf to wuda. So I'll translate this and then I'll talk about this part. So this is the second half of Yehirst to eadwacer. Eadwacer is where we get that vowel alliteration with uncerna. Or actually, no, this is not the alliterated part. It's uncerna erna. Sorry, uncer is describing erna, so it's probably not the stress here. Erne whelp. So whelp is the word whelp in modern English. So like pup, like usually a baby animal, but it can also mean child, human child in some contexts as well. And Arn here is like poor, our poor child, and it's our, but it's uncher. It's not uncher here is what we call a dual pronoun. So it's our two, the two of our together, our child, the two of us, our child, because Old English has a dual for pronouns, which is very useful to get this kind of thing across. Our child, our poor child, bireth wulf to wuda. So bears wolf to the wood. Now, it's not the child that is actually the subject because of the endings here. Arne and uncherne have this ending that marks it as the direct object. Uncherne is accusative singular. So that means the whelp is the object. So bireth, what? Wolf is actually the thing that is in the nominative, the subject case. So a wolf bears our poor child to the woods, to wuda. So is it wolf, capital W, the person, her wolf, or is it a wolf, like a Remus and Romulus situation, where well, it would be wulve here. It would be wulv, which is the feminine, if it were Remus and Romulus, because it was a female wolf that did that. But in any case, that kind of situation. Is a wolf abducting her child with eadwacer, or is it capital W wolf who's taking their child? It's unclear. What's also hotly debated is whether eadwacer is wolf or not. Probably not because of this line, but it's ambiguous. Where did eadwacer come from? So she has a child with someone named eadwacer. So that's interesting. So is this like not only a star-crossed situation, but she's also cheating with Wulf on eadwacer? Maybe that's why there's the hostility. Maybe there is no pre-existing feud. Maybe the feud is because she's seeing Wulf, but she's wedded to eadwacer and has a child, but Wulf has taken that child. It's unclear. Or maybe this is very metaphorical, and a wolf has taken our child to the woods is some kind of metaphor for any chance you and I, eadwacer and speaker, of us having children is taken away by wolf, because I love wolf. So it could be very abstract as well, potentially. Unclear, mysterious. That's why this poem is interesting. So, that. Oh, and the thing I was going to mention is Birith Wulf to Wuda is the only thing other than Unyalich is us so far that doesn't have a matching second half line. There's no thing that alliterates Wulf to Wuda is only a half. Birith Wulf to Wuda is just a half line, and there's no second half line that alliterates on W, because we start a new one here. That man ada to sliteth fatanavra yesomnad was. Uncher yed yador. So uncher yed yador is how the poem ends, and it's another unresolved half line. Just like unyalich is us, and Birith Wulf to Wuda. This is how the poem ends. Uncher yed yador. So what does this mean? That man ada to sliteth. That's what it said here. That mon ada to sliteth. I'm going to start with the verb here. To sliteth is separates. Here. And then that mun doesn't really make that much sense, because that is it has a couple different uses, but usually it's a what we call like a demonstrative pronoun, or demonstrative what can be a demonstrative pronoun, but it's a demonstrative article, or it can be a definite article. So the or that, and it takes a neuter nominative or accusative noun, and mun is neither of those things, because mun is a pronoun. So that here is probably just a relative relativizer, like the usually is that. So it's something that mun ada to sliteth, and here ada is like easily, and then mun to sliteth, this is probably an impersonal, like someone separates. Someone easily separates. That can easily be separated. That someone easily separates. Thata navras yesomnedwas. So something easily separates thata. So thata, that which never, navra, yesomnad was. Never was yesomnad. Yesamnian is to join together, to make one, to bind, to bring together. So something that was never joined together. So something that which was never joined together, one can easily toslitan. One can easily split apart. Uncher yed yador. Our two, and a yed is, it could be like a song, or a verse, or yeah, usually it's a song. A yed is a song, like a short song, or it could be a longer song too. But it's like a song in verse. So a poem is a yed. And then yador is together. Uncher yed yador. And again, we have just a half line with alliterating G's, but no second half line. Uncher yed yador. Our two, the two of our song together. I think it's a beautiful poem. This is one of my favorite poems in Old English, honestly. The refrain is really beautiful, like the concept of having this refrain, and especially this last one. So let's go back a little bit. We have an odd situation where it's unclear entirely who is who, in terms of like, is eadwacer wulf? Is eadwacer someone else? I'll say like the typical reading is that there's wulf and there's eadwacer. That's why the poem is called Wulf and eadwacer. If wulf and eadwacer are the same person, it's also it's confusing, but there you can make sense of it. Potentially wulf is like a nickname, or maybe eadwacer is a nickname. It probably isn't, because that's a very widely attested name. Wulf is also an attested name, but usually you have names with wulf as an element. So like wulf would be like a shortening of a name with wulf in it. But maybe the person's name is eadwacer, and wulf is like, she says mean wolf, so maybe that's like a term of endearment. She says my wolf. Maybe he has another name that's wolf, or has wolf in it, but eadwacer is like his actual name. If that's the case, then this part where she says, "Do you hear me, eadwacer? Our poor child, a wolf takes out to the woods." Then using a wolf there is maybe ironic. It's like, well, you're my wolf, but you're far away. So by being far away, you are taking away the chance of me having a child by being far away. Like it's as if a wolf is taking our poor child into the woods, because we're not going to have a child because you're gone. Or maybe if wulf and eadwacer again are the same person, perhaps they do have a child, but he might as well be taken to the woods without a father. But the conventional reading is that eadwacer is her husband, and they have a child. But this affair that she might be having with this other guy named Wulf is making it that creates a tricky situation in a like patriarchal society, like the Old English one that we're talking about here, where like if there's question about the like progeny of the child, right? Like is if it's known that she has had some kind of affair with Wulf, then depending on the timing of it all, if she has a child, there might be question about whether it's Wulf's or eadwacer's, and that would then make it hard for the child if they might be a bastard child, and they wouldn't know, and that could create problems for the child. So it's as if a wolf brought our child into the woods. But when she says uncher är na whelp, the uncher there seems to be referring to her, and like the unk there, the wheat too, seems to be referring to her and eadwacer, because that's the name she just said. So if they are separate people, it's her child and eadwacer's, or at least presumably. But that might be the problem, is like we don't know if it's presumably because a wolf is taken at the woods, because we don't know if it's wolves or not. But the last full line and then half line seem to be circling back to wolf, because it says that man slita that navra yesomned was uncher yed yador. That seems to be referring to her and wolf, because they're separated. That was very clear earlier on in the poem, that she and wolf are the ones who are separated, because wolf is on ie, each on over. That was like one of the first lines we had after the first refrain. Wolf is on one island and she's on another. They're separated. And here she's saying that which was never bound, maybe by marriage, is easily separated. Our song together. So it seems like our song together is me and Wolf's song together, because they're separated. So there'd be like two different uncher is referring to two different pairs, one with her and Wolf here, and one with her and eadwacer here, if they are separate people. So you can see why this is such like a enigmatic poem. There's so many different ways to read it with this situation. But it is ultimately a story. It's a sad poem, but I think it's a beautiful poem. The way that it has these refrains, and there's a lot of love in the sort of like content of it. Like there's a lot of love as a theme in the story, and my wolf repeating several times is very sweet to me. I think that's nice, especially if wolf does turn out to be like a nickname. We don't have a way to know, but if it was like some kind of like term of endearment she had for him, that's kind of sweet too. So that is Wolf and eadwacer. The next poem we're going to read in Yesterlore is on a similar theme. I kind of wanted to do a series on these, it's called elegiac poems. Specifically, we've read Wolf and eadwacer, which is about love and separation. The next one we are going to read is called The Wife's Lament, which is also about love and separation. And then I think we'll read, one of the riddles that then goes into the husband's message, and then we'll read the husband's message, which I think will be a cool conclusion, because it ends with a more hopeful kind of chance of reuniting in the future, because we have this one, which is kind of sad, and then we have The Wife's Lament, which is also kind of sad, but then hopefully we'll have the husband's message, which is a bit more hopeful. So this was Wolf and eadwacer. I hope this was interesting. It is, really high up there in one of my favorite Old English poems. And that's kind of all I have to say about it. If you have comments on it, please leave them below. I want to see what you think of this poem. And I will put the link to the Exeter book again in the description. I have before, because we've read from the Exeter book before, but I will put it in there again. And I think I'll link to the first folio page, so you can start there if you want to look at it again. There are, of course, translations available you can go out and find pretty easily. But I hope this was fun. I hope this was interesting. And I hope you have a good rest of your night / whatever time zone you're in. I will see you next week. Probably with some conlang content next week. So look forward to that, and then we'll probably circle back to Yesterlore before we do another journal video. I think we did a journal video last week, so we're gonna do something else for a bit. We did journal last week, so we did Yesterlore today. We'll do conlang next week, and then we'll do probably one more Yesterlore before we circle back to journaling, doing the journal video. So Sorry, I just see a message in the chat. That looks like a bot, actually. So we'll take a look at that, and then I'll end the stream here. Thank you, and farewell.